Olivia Brown, known as Livie, is a 30-year-old physician's assistant at the labor and delivery unit of St. Francis Hospital in Albany, New York. Exhausted after 3 grueling 12-hour shifts, she decides to swing by the airport to swap cars with her husband, Ryan, before his business trip. But what Livie discovers in their minivan, tucked in a shadowy corner of the parking deck, shatters her world. Ryan, her husband of 6 years and a pregnant woman, caught cheating through moans and laughter echoing from the vehicle. Recording the heartbreaking betrayal on her phone, Livie faces a devastating infidelity story that unravels her trust, from pain to empowerment. Follow Livie's journey as she confronts this betrayal and fights for her family's future. If you've ever faced the sting of cheating, join the Infidelity Whisper channel to share and hear raw stories of heartbreak and healing. Subscribe now and connect with others who understand. She is so tired. But after getting off early from a quiet night, she decided to drive by the airport and pick up their minivan. Livie's husband of 6 years. Ryan, age 35, is leaving on a business trip this morning. He works as a medical drug representative at a pharmaceutical company. She had originally planned to pick up their van later today after a nap, but after a cup of coffee decided to run by now and trade cars in the parking deck. It would save her time later today. Their children, Isabella, age 3, and the twins Emma and Noah, age 5 months, were at her mother's home, where they spent the night. Ryan had needed the van to take the children to her mother's last night, so she drove his car to work. After trading cars, she would then go to her mother's and take a nap. Her 15-year-old sister, Iris, who loves the children, is there to help her children's Grammy. She drove into the parking garage looking for the minivan. Surprisingly, it was not where Ryan told her he would park it. And as it is 7:00 a.m., the second level is almost empty. She drove up one level and there was the van parked in a dark corner. She thought to herself, "That's weird. His flight leaves at 9:00 a.m. and he always gets to the airport early, but to park in such a spot is not like him." She pulls in near the elevator under a light. When she walks to the van, she notices that it is shaking. Like, what is going on? Then she hears moans. The moans get louder, and then she hears a female voice saying, Ryan. Ryan, harder. Livie takes a deep breath, and the pain in her chest is unbearable. She pulls her cell phone out of her pocket in a panic and dialed her husband's number. This must be a mistake, and stepped back to check the tag number again. She could hear her special ringtone ringing and ringing. Then she heard laughter as the female voice said, "There's your old woman calling." Her husband just laughed and rejected her call. At that point, Livie got angry and started recording the moans and voices she heard. After recording, she walked across the parking deck and stood just out of sight beside a support post. She dialed 911 and very calmly asked for an officer to come meet her in the parking deck. She stated, "I have just discovered my husband cheating, and I am afraid there might be yelling and violence in the next few minutes." The 911 operator asked if Livie felt threatened, and Livie replied, "No, but I am afraid my husband may receive a few bodily injuries. I am not planning on hurting anyone, but I do feel very angry." Ben Parker was on patrol after a long night shift and was headed into the station to clock out. He was the closest officer to the airport. In fact, he was driving right by the entrance when the call came. He laughed at the 911 dispatcher when he heard about the call, but drove into the building. He pulled into a parking place near where a young woman with short blonde hair in green hospital scrubs stood. The deck was almost empty, so she was easy to find. He walked up to her and asked if she was Olivia Brown, who had phoned 911. She just barely looked at him as she was recording on her phone. She thanked him for coming and told him, "I really would not hurt anyone, but I am so angry that I am not sure what will happen when I confront the jerk." Ben looked at where she was recording and shocked to see a tall man with reddish hair standing beside an open door of a minivan, pulling his pants on and tucking his shirt. Then he was shocked to see his sister-in-law climbing out of the vehicle, putting her shirt on and pulling up her pants. The male was buttoning her shirt, and they were giggling and talking about their upcoming trip. The male was saying, "I told Livie that I was leaving at 9:00 a.m. when our flight is leaving at 10:08 a.m., so we have plenty of time." The girl, Brandy said, "Missed you so much last night, but I couldn't get away." Ben looked at Olivia as she put her phone down. She turned to him and said, "I am going over and talk with them. Could you please go with me? I don't want to cause a scene, but I am furious." Then she asked the craziest question. "Did I have any disinfectant spray in my car?" I turned and got the spray that all officers keep for spraying after a dirty suspect has smelled up our patrol cars, and because we just lived through a pandemic. She very calmly walked toward her husband, and when she got closer, she looked at her cell phone and clicked a button. She said, "Good morning. Ryan, an unknown woman with dyed red hair. I see you have been busy. I noticed that she is pregnant. Is it yours? Ryan?" Ryan looked like he was having a heart attack, and the female just laughed until she saw her police officer brother-in-law standing behind Livie. Ryan said, "Livie, what are you doing here? Yeah, you're supposed to be at work?" He tried to grab Livie's hands, but she told him, "Keep your nasty hands off of me. I know what you have been doing in the van." Livie stood very quietly and listened, while Ryan kept on and on asking questions, then trying to explain. He said, "This is Brandy, and she works in my office. We are leaving for a conference this morning. Why did you ask if her baby is mine? That's crazy." After a few minutes, Ryan looked at Ben and asked, "Officer, why are you here? This is not a police matter." Ben looked at Brandy and asked her if she wanted to tell Ryan how she knows him. Brandy looked scared, but said, "Ryan, this is my brother-in-law." Ryan looked confused. "Your brother-in-law married to your sister?" Ben said, "This is a surprise, as Brandy is married to my brother Blake, who is at this moment at home with their 2 children. Ryan said, "You're married. You told me you're single, and this is your first baby." "You said he is my baby." Then he looked at Livie and said, "I didn't mean my baby. I would never do that to you." Livie turned to Ben and asks for his private cell phone number. After he gave it to her, she sent him all her recordings that she had made. She said, "This is for your brother, as I am sure he will need these recordings for the custody and divorce hearings." Ryan made a grab for Livie's phone, but Ben caught his arm and told him to calm down, or he would be placed under arrest. Ryan sneered and said, "You can't arrest me, as I have done nothing wrong." Ben replied, "Indecent exposure, threatening a police officer, and domestic violence are good reasons. Don't worry, though, as I have already radioed for backup as soon as I saw Brandy get out of your vehicle half-dressed. As a family member, I cannot be involved in this case." About that time, another police officer pulled up, and Ben gave him all the details as to why he could not be involved in the case. Ben stepped to the side and called his brother Blake and asked him to meet him after he dropped the girls off at preschool. When Ben walked back up to where everyone was standing, he heard the recording that Livie had made and saw the other police officer watching the video. Officer Smith told Livie that she had a good case for a divorce to save the recordings. Ryan was furious when he heard the recordings. Livie said, "Don't worry, I have sent them to Officer Parker, my mother, and my friend. I think there is enough copies to be safe. Also, my friend is married to a divorce attorney." Livie turned to Ben and asked for the disinfectant spray. He was still holding it in his hand. She took the spray and, after making Ryan hold out his hands for hand sanitizer from her pocket, told him to take the spray and use it in the van. She said, "I cannot put my children in a vehicle that has had nasty people having sex in it without cleaning first. Officers Smith and Ben both choked back a laugh. Brandy and Ryan gave Livie a dirty look. Livie turned to the officers and asked them to please stay with her until she leaves in her van. She is afraid that Ryan and Brandy will try and harm her. Ryan said, "Come on, we have been married for 6 years, and I have never hurt you." Livie turned to him and said, "I am pretty sure you broke my heart this morning." Ryan hung his head and wouldn't look at anyone. Officer Smith took the disinfectant spray and sprayed the inside of the van, including the baby car seats. He took the blanket from the back of the van, with gloves on, and threw it in the trash. Livie thanked the officers, turned to Ryan and said, "The house was mine when we got married, so you can move your things out when you and Brandy return from your business trip. And we will talk about visitation with the children. Brandy, I don't know how far along pregnant you are, but please do not come to St. Francis for your delivery." Livie got into her van and left, with all the windows down, and only Ben noticed the tears she tried to hide. After Livie left, Brandy turned to Ben and begged, "Please don't tell Blake." Ben looked at her with disgust, saying, "Too late?" He and Officer Smith left at the same time. After everyone left, Brandy asked Ryan, "What are we going to do?" Ryan told her, "We are going to catch our flight and have a good time for the next 3 days. Livie won't do anything, because she just got off a 3-day stretch at work, and besides being tired, she will be taking care of the kids. I will fix everything when we get back. Don't worry, we will be fine." Brandy was worried, as what will happen if Ben tells her husband Blake everything? But she decided to listen to Ryan and have fun. It was not every day a 5 months pregnant woman had a free trip to Vegas. Ben and Blake met at the coffee shop near the police station, which was close to Blake's law office. They sat in a back corner for privacy. Ben showed Blake the video, and he listened to the audio. When he finished, he sat with his head down and looked sad. Ben said, "I am so sorry to have to show you all of this, but I would want to know and felt like you would too." Blake nodded his head and told Ben he was taking the girls to their parents after work today, and then having the locks changed on the house. Also, he is filing for immediate custody of the children, including their unborn son, as the video shows that their mother is not fit to take the children after her public display. The house is in his name, and he will file for divorce. He will also file for a DNA test of his son after his birth. Blake is Ben's younger brother at age 30, and Ben is almost 32 years old and never married. They are a very close family, and they would get through this together. Ben hopes that Livie has as much support as Blake does. Livie drives home in tears. In her mind, she was trying not to think about how her life just imploded. She began making a list of things to do: change the locks on the house, contact the divorce lawyer for help in immediate custody of the children. She will let Ryan visit because he has been a good daddy, but who knows, she also thought he was a good husband. She will need to talk to her supervisor at the hospital, because if Brandy comes to their unit, Livie cannot be anywhere near her or her room. If anything went wrong with the delivery, then there would be a big lawsuit for her and the hospital. On most of Livie's shifts, she delivers a lot of babies, covering for the attending physicians. Livie had been in medical school when she and Ryan married, but he talked her out of finishing because of the cost. She became a physician assistant and a certified midwife, but she always hoped to finish medical school someday. Livie phoned her mother, Sarah, and talked on her Bluetooth while driving. Her mother was shocked at the video and audio she had heard. Livie reassured her that she was as okay as she could be right now, maybe a little numb and shocked. She asked if they are okay. Could the children stay for a little while? She did a couple of things and maybe a nap? Her mother said, "Of course, take all the time you need. The children are good. We just finished breakfast and they are playing with Iris on the floor." Livie promised to call and check on them shortly and be over as soon as she rested a little. Sarah asked if it was okay if she shared everything with Livie's stepfather, Sam. Livie loved Sam as he has been so good to her since her father had died when she was in college. She told her mother it was fine, but please keep it from Iris for now, as she is so young. Blake was very unhappy when he went to work. He had several meetings today as he is a business and estate planning attorney. He had made partner last year and made a good salary for a young attorney. His mind was racing at the thoughts of Brandy's deception, and was the new baby his? Later in the afternoon, he phoned his friend from college, who is Brandy's boss, the CEO of the pharmaceutical company. He told him about the video that he had of Brandy cheating and asked his friend if he had heard any rumors at their workplace. Bob. His friend told him that he had not heard anything, but they also have a firm rule against workplace dating. Blake sent a screenshot photo of Ryan from the video, and Bob said, "Yes, this is Ryan Brown. He does work here. In fact, Panninghof. Brandy is his assistant, and they just left for a conference in Vegas for 3 days. Ryan is married, and they just had twins recently. We would have never okayed them traveling together if we had known they were seeing each other." Blake asks if there were any consequences of them dating. Bob told him that it will be investigated by HR. If they have gone to Vegas and are sharing a room, but then fill out expense report for 2 rooms, and we find they are being deceptive, they will be fired. Blake thanked him for any help he could give him, as he will be filing for a divorce. Ryan and Brandy returned from their Vegas trip on Friday very happy. They felt like they had fooled everyone at work and their spouses. They drove by their workplace to allow Brandy to pick up her car and to turn in their expense report from the trip. They were laughing about how nobody would know that they had shared a room. As the expense report they filled out showed 2 rooms, it was filled out in such a way that they will get cash back from their trip. Brandy turned the report into HR while Ryan checked messages on his desk phone. They left shortly after, not realizing that HR was sending a copy of their report to the CEO. HR had been in touch with the hotel and already knew that the couple had shared a room. They were going to get a big surprise when they returned to work on Monday. Ryan drove home and discovered that his key would not work in the front door. He phoned Livie, and she told him that he did not live there anymore, and his clothes and things had been sent to his parents' home the day before. He was furious and told her to come open the door immediately. Livie told him that she was out of town, so it was not possible. Ryan drove to his parents' home so mad that he even got pulled over and given a ticket for speeding. He went into his parents' house yelling and screaming about how Livie had locked him out of his house. His sister. Sophie was visiting and asked him what happened, as that was not something Livie would normally do. Ryan just yelled he did not know what was wrong with Livie, that she had left town with the kids. Sophie and Livie had roomed together in college and were good friends. She and her parents were terribly upset with Livie. Sophie sent a text message to Livie asking her what was wrong with her that she had locked Ryan out of his house. Livie replied via text, "Sophie, I love you and your parents dearly, and I am sorry you are upset with me. The house is mine, as I bought it before we were ever married, and it is in my name." Attached is a video and audio for you to watch. It is up to you if you want to share with Mom and Dad. Remember, I love all of you. After Sophia received the text, she opened the video first, then listened to the audio. She cried and then decided her parents needed to see the text. All of them. After that, they were upset with Ryan. Livie was so upset about Ryan that her parents and her sister decided that all of them needed a trip to their cabin. It was located about an hour out of town on Saratoga Lake, NY, and had an isolated beach. They watched the children while Livie took long walks and had time to think. Livie had to return to work after having 4 days off, and she talked with her supervisor. The plan was, instead of 3 12-hour shifts, she would only work 2 12-hour shifts at a time. This way she could spend more time with her children. Ryan called continually, but Livie would only tell him to get his life in order, then they would talk. She suggested he decide if he was going to be a father to Brandy's child or their 3 children. Ryan threatened to get custody. but it was an empty threat, as Livie had an advantage of owning their home and making more money. She had not had an affair in public. It was Ryan. When Ryan and Brandy returned to work on Monday, they were called into the CEO's office. Ryan told Brandy that he bets they get a raise because of all the networking they had done at the conference. When they entered the office, it was a surprise to them to see head of HR, CEO, and their immediate supervisor. They were told to have a seat and then asked if they had one room or two at the hotel and were they dating. They both denied having one room or dating. When confronted with the facts, Ryan said the hotel made a mistake, as we had 2 rooms. Also, he is married with 3 children, and Brandy said she is married with 2 children and 1 on the way. Unbeknownst to them, the manager of the hotel where they stayed in Vegas was on the phone listening. He spoke up and said that the couple stayed in 1 room, and according to the housekeepers, they slept in the 1 bed. The room they stayed in was the expensive penthouse bridal suite. The CEO thanked the hotel manager and hung up the phone. He asked Ryan and Brandy if they wanted to change any part of their statements. Ryan continued to deny. Oh, no, we are not dating or sharing a bed. The couple were given termination papers and security escorted them to empty their desk of personal items and walk to their cars. Brandy was crying and asked, Ryan, what are we going to do? We have been fired and my family are not going to let me stay with them long. Blake had already filed for divorce, served her with papers, and requested custody of the children. She was not allowed to enter the home. Blake had also had Brandy's mother come pack her clothes and things. Her family was really disgusted with her. Ryan was furious. He wondered if Livie had something to do with them getting fired. Brandy told him that she thought Blake did, because he was friends with the CEO. Ryan told Brandy they couldn't get an apartment as he is broke, but maybe his parents would let her move in with him. She left to go to her parents, and he went to his parents. When he asked if Brandy could move in since she was pregnant, his dad and mom said together loudly, "No." Livie's attorney had Ryan served with divorce papers, and because she has proof that he committed adultery, he will have to pay 100% of court costs and her legal fees. He can also be charged in NY a Class B misdemeanor and could spend up to 3 months in jail for infidelity. But Livie is not pushing for that to happen. They will only divide what they have purchased together in the 6 years of marriage and money in their bank accounts and their cars. Ryan was rejecting the division and wanted the house sold and money divided. His attorney advised against causing any trouble, as there is video of his infidelity. There was proof that Livie had purchased the home prior to the marriage, made all the payments, and paid the taxes. Livie will have full custody of the children, with Ryan only seeing them twice a month. The divorce was not final when Brandy went into labor. Of course, she and Ryan came to St. Francis, where Livie was on duty. Livie was on, and when staff realized who they were, her OB was called in for the delivery. Livie finished with her patient, and her supervisor allowed Livie to leave, and a call person covered the rest of her shift. This was a plan that had been in place ever since Livie found out about Brandy's pregnancy. The hospital assigned a security officer to be near Brandy's room, as Ryan and Blake were both there for the delivery. Ryan made a scene by requesting Livie do the delivery, but calmed down when told she was not on duty. After about 10 hours of labor, a healthy baby boy was delivered. One of Livie's friends on duty called her to let her know the baby was born without difficulty. She whispered to her that the fathers had not realized it yet, but the baby is obviously not either of theirs because it is biracial. They were waiting on a DNA test to be done. Livie did not go back to work until Brandy and the baby were discharged. The hospital agreed it was too big of a risk for a lawsuit if anything went wrong with Brandy or her child. Ben visited with Blake at the hospital while Brandy was in labor. He was disappointed to learn that Livie was off work, as he had heard Ryan fussing. He wanted to see how she was doing and if she had support. he decided to phone her, as he had her cell number from where she had sent the video and audio. After Ben's phone call, Livie was surprised, as she had enjoyed talking to him so much. She could just barely remember what he looked like on that traumatic day at the airport. After the divorce was final, she phoned to thank him for his support, and he invited her to meet for coffee. They did meet, and they both really enjoyed their talk. Livie felt like she could tell him anything and he would not judge her. She told him that the worst time for her was not at the airport, where it felt like an episode of the cheating TV show, even though that was the worst shock of her life. It was when she realized that Ryan had been sleeping with Brandy while she was pregnant with twins. Ryan had told her it was because she was fat and tired, and that he needed an outlet. Livie thought that was a crazy excuse, as did he think Brandy wouldn't get fat and tired being pregnant. Ben thought Ryan was a jerk for telling her something like that, and he told Livie how he felt. They enjoyed their time together and became good friends. It was Ben who told Livie that neither Blake nor Ryan were the father of Brandy's baby, that actually 2 other men were tested, and they were not the father either. 4 men tested, and not any of them were the father of that child. Livie was horrified to hear this news. She felt so sorry for the child who might never know his biological father. She was disgusted to think that her husband was sleeping with somebody that had so many partners. Luckily, Livie had been tested for STDs after learning of the affair, and she was negative. Ryan was shocked that neither he nor Brandy's husband were the father of her son. Then Brandy told him 2 other men were tested, and they were also negative. He couldn't believe how he had been tricked by such a sweet, nice girl. When he phoned Livie and asked if he could visit the children, he told her Brandy had tricked him. Livie just laughed at him, but made plans for him to come visit. The day he came, he brought flowers for Livie and thought he could win her back. The only thing was she wasn't there. Her parents and his were there to help with the visit. He didn't like it because Iris let it slip that Livie had gone hiking with a nice policeman. A couple of years later, Livie and Ben were married. The children loved him and called him Daddy B. Ryan had stopped coming to visit after a few months. He said it was too much work. Also, Livie was gone at each visit, but the grandparents were always there. She never planned to keep Ryan from his children, but felt she didn't need to see him. Ryan finally got a new job and moved to Atlanta, Georgia. Brandy moved away with a new man and left her son with her older parents. Blake finally took custody of the child and was raising him with his half-sisters. He was a very sweet child, and Blake loved him. At Livie and Ben's wedding, Blake met Sophie, Ryan's sister, and they became good friends. After about a year, she moved in with him and they had a son. Sophia loved Blake and his children, and they were very happy together, and eventually they were married. At Ben's encouraging, Livie retook the MCATs and passed with an extremely high score. She was accepted back into her original medical program with some catching up, and she became an OB/GYN doctor. During this time, Ben had quit the police force and was now working as a private detective. He opened an office with his friend Officer Smith, and he loved the work. He had flexible hours to watch their children. Besides Isabella, Noah, and Emma, they had another son named Benny. After Ben, whenever Ryan came to Albany, he visited the children. The children were in middle school before they went anywhere with their dad, not because of their mom refusing or anything. It was their decision. They always acted like they had to get to know him again at each visit, because the visits were so far apart, and there was a trust issue. They adored Ben and their baby brother and their cousins, but didn't know their dad very well. Ryan had gotten married again to a woman that wanted to pretend he had never had children. She hated children and refused to ever get pregnant. She never wanted to meet Ryan's children or allow him to visit. Livie occasionally thinks back to that day at the airport when her supposedly perfect life imploded. Now she doesn't take anything for granted and works to keep her marriage happy. The thing is that Ben is nothing like Ryan, and for that she is very thankful. He is kind, caring, and loves his family so very much. Livie feels like fate stepped in that long ago day at the airport and opened her eyes to what life should really be like. She had not even realized until that day that she was not really happy in her marriage, and that she was the one that loved more. Now her life is calm, and she is loved completely. Fate is in control, and karma is real. Not really. The end, but a new beginning.